Hello, everybody. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm Chief Trendwatcher of Supply Chain Media. You might also know me as the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movements. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. A very important topic, sustainable supply chains. Probably, or actually, the most important topic of all, I would say. We have a nice line of experts, and hopefully we have a lot of conversation from the audience. So welcome. Like I said, my name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm the CEO and Chief Trendwatcher of Supply Chain Media. You see me on the left. In the middle, we have Erwin Faber. He is Director of Districon. Erwin, hi.
Hi, everybody. Good to have you here in this session. Looking forward.
And next, we have Pronk. He's Chief Commercial Officer of BigMile. Jan, welcome.
Martijn, thanks. Happy everyone is showing up with the beautiful weather in the Netherlands.
Right, but it's good to know. This webinar will be recorded. The audience is on mute, but we want to have a lot of interaction and discussions because I think there's a lot to discuss. We will make sure that the PDF of this webinar will be made available within 48 hours, so you can expect this. And we like to have a lot of questions because I think there's a lot to discuss about sustainability and supply chain perspective. So we have a few ways to ask a question. You can use the chat for one thing, so everybody can see that. But you can also use the Q&A, and please use the Q&A part. You see it on the right-hand side. We have a Q&A at the end. But if the questions are in line of the conversation we are having, I will ask these questions right away. So we keep it interactive, and so the audience can also discuss with us. And in the end, if your questions are not answered, or you would like to have a further discussion with the experts, with us, with Erwin, Jan, and myself, or people who also would like to join, we'll have a next session also at 5 o'clock CET in the lounge. And it looked like this. So you will go into the lounge, and we will be sitting at table 1. So Jan, Erwin, and myself will be sitting at table 1. You can join us, so you have an opportunity to discuss this topic even further. And you can have discussions with other people attending. All right, let's go to the meat on the bone. But first, we go to Districon. Erwin, could you explain briefly Districon? What kind of consultancy firm is it?
Yeah, pleased to introduce our company. Districon is a supply chain boutique consultancy firm. Where we support our customers to set up and optimize their supply chain. That's our more basic service that we provide. I think a classic advisory service. But next to that, we also have our more IT-related services, what we call Districon Solutions, and where we develop customized IT tools for customers for optimizing their supply chain or production planning in the most broad sense. We not only develop customer concepts, but we also implement concepts, and we do that via our professional services. So that's briefly what we do, and we do that all over the world, but we're based in the Netherlands.
All right, good to know. So welcome on this webinar, and you also have some contacts and some dealings with the BigMile we're going to discuss later. To explain BigMile, since 2018, Supply Chain Media is analyzing supply chain startups and scale-up in Europe. And you'll see this overview of this year. And this year, we introduced the category supply chain sustainability. So we have 10 categories from left to right. It's supplier management, and all the way to the right is last mile delivery. And in between, you have visibility, inventory optimization, on-demand warehousing, road freight matching, and you name it. So it's quite detailed, but we have a lot of research done in this. So we have scanned the European market, and we have analyzed over 160 startups and scale-ups. And you see the differentiation the starters, rather small starting companies, and the more mature scale-ups above the green dotted line. And as you can see, BigMile is a scale-up in the category of supply chain sustainability. And this year they've been rewarded as the winner of the European Supply Chain Scale-up contest. And that's why we have invited BigMile to join, because they have obviously a great vision and application, and that's the reason why they have won the Scale-up contest of this year. Jan, could you introduce BigMile a bit?
Yes, of course. First of all, thanks for this brilliant introduction. We're really proud being the winner of this award, of course. And it also points out that there is need for the solution like we have. BigMile shortly is a cloud-based software platform in which you are able to calculate and report, but also analyze and optimize your CO2, let's say a carbon footprint in your supply chain. We are focusing on being the standard for doing so, because we expect the more regulations and the more law there will be worldwide about this subject, that there will be a need in the supply chain for an independent third-party platform who can calculate that, and that there is commitment in this whole supply chain to the method to calculate it. So that's where we dive in, and yeah, we're going steady. So it's really nice to do so.
All right. And could you explain a bit more about your platform? It tends to be techy maybe, but please explain it a bit.
Yeah, well, it's not that techy, especially with reporting. Data is key, of course. So that's the same with whole the trends we talk later about digitalization in supply chain. That's also important for BigMile, especially the cooperation between the producers and the brands and the logistics service providers, because we need shipment data and, of course, data out of the vehicle. So what we do is combine this data, and the more detailed data there is, the more detailed you can report, of course. And with that, we are using, let's say, the standards available to report, and to calculate, and also to allocate CO2 to shipment level, actually. No matter if it's an airplane, a train, or a truck, or the last mile e-commerce van delivering your package at home. And that platform is really smart in that sense, that we try to make it as easy as possible for all the parties in the supply chain to connect to this platform and to easily share their data within their supply chain together with the stakeholders, so that it's not a challenging issue to do so, but that you can focus on your daily business, and we try to make the reporting of CO2 easy.
Yeah. And at the end, you're stating, accountancy statement, and that's something very important, getting more and more important, especially for listed companies. So that's also good to, but we'll get to that later on. Yeah. All right. Okay. So next, Supply Chain Media did a survey among European supply chain executives last year, and those are chief supply chain officers of well-known multinationals. And on the left-hand side, you see results of the question. We asked them, name the 2 mega trends the most important for your company. And digitalization was number 1. They can only answer 2. So they have to make trade-offs, not just, okay, all these things are very important, just 2. So digitalization was number 1. Sustainability was number 2. Pandemic came number 3. Then localization, reshoring number 4, and globalization number 5, and urbanization came as last. We asked the same a bunch of executive. Okay, now talk about your boardroom topics. Which 2 topics are on your agenda? And you can only name 2. And based on that, you saw that sustainability was dropping very rapidly. So business transformation was number 1, operational excellence number 2. Customer excellence and portfolio optimization was number 3. Supply chain risk management number 4, and sustainability only 5, dropping from number 2 to number 5. Erwin, what is your vision on this?
What you see in the last year, also because of COVID, that of course it was a very new situation for all companies, and with all the uncertainty within the supply chain, it was back to basic, I think. So that was focusing on operation and getting things done, and all the uncertainty that there is in the supply chain. And there you see that the more fancy topics like sustainability, as it is for most companies, it has been dropping a bit. Fortunately, you see that in the last few months, that there's a comeback of the theme. That you see that sustainability can also be have a more broadened added value to your supply chain, and also can contribute to efficiency.
Yeah. So if you are having sustainability as a goal, in the end, and all supply chain people will and should know, you will be becoming more sustainable and efficient by getting rid of all your CO2. But obviously, as this slide quotes, business transformation and operational excellence is still number 1 and number 2, and these are old-fashioned goals, I would say.
Yeah, it says something indeed. What Erwin was saying, that sustainability is not part of, let's say, the core business. People think, and the funny thing is, of course, that if you want to have operational excellence, 9 of the 10 times, the better your process is organized, the less CO2 emissions you have in your supply chain.
Yeah.
So it's well connected. And the strange thing is that especially in this time with COVID, with let's say the natural change, the climate change we see everywhere. Forests are on fire, heavy rains, flus everywhere. We are very vulnerable, but as soon as things are getting better, as we think, we get back to our old behavior. That's what else do we need in this almost negative perfect storm to be confronted with how we should deal with let's say the new thinking, and sustainability is I think the main focus for everyone.
Yeah, and I can add to that. Of course, the first adapters of sustainability was more from a real intrinsic motivation, but now you see that also from the other side. And maybe that's also more marketing motivation. But now you see that other side, there's also that the government is setting up the new rules, and that also helps in moving companies towards. So you have to get aboard, or else you miss the train. You cannot enter the city, or you have to pay additional fees for having your product on the market. So I really believe that's you can bring it further with the more two-stream approach.
Yeah, I hope so, and we will repeat this survey among executives later this year. But it's still interesting to see. Another thing is, a lot of companies are talking about we need more resilience because of the flooding and drought and that kind of stuff. So it's more of resilience. We also ask the executives in the survey, what are the drivers for customers? And they still say, cost is still the most important driver to buying products by customers, and sustainability is only in number 4. So and safety, especially with the COVID-19, was high on the agenda, and then we came to convenience, buying online and that kind of stuff. So in this sense, also this executive had to make trade-offs. Which 2 drivers are the most important? And still, you see also from a customer perspective, sustainability is rather low on this scale, and that probably will change in the near future. But in the perspective of the executive, it's not so high at this moment. What do you see, Erwin? Is this changing that customers already are consumers and customers are screaming for sustainable product and want to pay for it?
I think that a lot of companies are adapting to this need of customers. For instance, with e-commerce, that you see that some of these parties, when you order a product, then you see and not only what the costs are for the product that you pay for it, but also what is the impact on the environment. With this leaf, is it green leaf or brown leaf? So there you see that the companies are adapting that. I also see it. You can see it in your own environment, and I can see it in our own organization where there are new young people boarding, and they don't want to drive a car, but they want to have mobility as a service. So I see really from not only companies but also within from private motivation, you see that things are moving up now.
Yeah, and another thing, the winner of 2018 of the startup contest was Lucabox, and they provide a tool for retailers in a web shop to choose the right delivery mode. So you can choose a green mode. So you can add it to a web shop, and I want to have it delivered by bike and not by diesel truck or I think. Yeah. So that will come up in the near future. So there are some toolings, but it's not generally available yet. So now in the end, at Amazon, you can decide whether you want to bundle or not. And most often, the Amazon is still sending it separately. But in the end, I think consumers are wanting to choose for a green option to be delivered.
Yeah, that's it. I fully agree. We are at this moment talking with, let's say, the branch organization for e-commerce in the Netherlands and retail. It's Thuiswinkel.org, but also with some technology partners to give insights indeed in the checkout of a web shop that you have an option to choose. Yeah. Of course, from practical perspective, one day you want to have it delivered on your working office. The other day you want to pick it up. The next day you want to have it on a home delivery. But also, what's the impact of my order? And is it really necessary to have it the same day, or to receive it tomorrow? Or can I wait for some days with a less footprint for transportation? Yeah. So I think giving the option is already the first step for awareness, and I think consumers are willing to pay for sustainability.
Yeah, and the other way around, I forbid my children to order at Alibaba. I think,
exactly.
When I explain that this cheap stuff is coming all the way from China, and how long does it take, and apart from maybe possible child labor, but I forbid them to buy on Alibaba, and they don't. So in the end, what we see in the UK, a lot of mom and pop shops over there have opened a web shop. You see also from e-commerce perspective, more locally buying online in the UK, especially. So and that's booming. Maybe part of the Brexit, but a lot of UK stores have opened up web shops, and people want to buy locally, even e-commerce. And that's an interesting trend.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Apart from this survey, we have also read another survey, a recent one by MIT Center for Transportation Logistics in Boston, and it was done jointly with the CCMP audience or organization in the US. Interesting findings. You can find the report online, just being published, I think, last month. On the left-hand side, you see, since the start of COVID-19, my firm's commitment to supply chain sustainability has, and 36% of the respondents, a huge one, more than 1,500, answered, my commitment has increased. Any explanation, Erwin, why it has increased the commitment to sustainability?
First of all, this is a quite encouraging figure, of course, because I think maybe up front we would have expected that with uncertainty in COVID that everybody is looking more at the recession and why invest in the more long-term sustainability. But it has increased, so that's a positive movement. What I hear from the more multinational customers is that in the red race they have with the customer, that the customer is demanding more sustainability, and that they are trying to meet that demand.
Yeah.
And I think that could be one of the explanation of this figure.
Yeah, I think myself, that COVID-19 is also to be seen as a kind of reset.
Yeah.
We're getting into kind of a new normal, so that's the reason why I think that it has increased a lot by more than 1/3. So we're getting into a new age. I would say things have changed, indefinitely. But on the right-hand side, you see, in the same survey, they ask, what about investments in sustainability? And surprisingly enough, there was hardly any growth in investments related to supply chain sustainability. Erwin, what's your view on that? Is it logic, or why is that?
Yeah, for me that was maybe a little bit surprising to what I see in the environment. For instance, when there's a lot of companies that are setting up new warehouses, being built all over the place, and where the standard level of a more sustainable building is increasing quite fast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
that part of supply chain, I would say, hey, that's surprising.
Yeah.
The same accounts for when you have to buy new trucks, etc. Yeah, the new trucks are more sustainable than the old one. Also, your packing material. So.
Yeah, when you look at the figures, the survey has been done at the end of last year, and I can also imagine, that people are still in COVID setting. So investments are not finalized or approved. So I think that this might be a bit early to say, okay, what's happening in the investment side, because I think in the near future this investment will and should go up.
Yeah, I agree.
Really, because when you now look at the labor market and the scarcity that you have there, so that investing in your logistics setup in order to be less dependent of all the people in production and distribution, their automation, robotization really can help. So there, you would expect that the figures are going up this year.
Jan, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I recognize the trends in these figures also with our business. On the left side, yes, there is an increasement of, let's say, momentum and interest in sustainability, no doubt. We had a lot of conversations with brands organizations, big brands, but also the logistics service suppliers. Everyone is interested, but at the same time, they said, well, it's an uncertain time. It's still COVID, so we only invest concretely right now in stuff what really helps our operations running.
Yeah.
And as long as there is a good business case, and if you build a new warehouse, it makes sense to do that sustainable, because you can calculate that back, and bottom line you win maybe. But that's not definitely the case when you start reporting CO2. There's not yet a closing business case. So I recognize the trend, and I agree that now we see that there is improvement in our COVID situation, that people will start to invest also in, let's say, data and technology for reporting, because they see that they have to, because that there will be a CO2 tax within some years, for sure.
Maybe a question for you. Do you also then recognize that in the last year, customers are just have a more need for a longer decision-taking time to do the investment in IT or a building like that?
Jan, do you see that?
Yeah, it's
more postponement of the decision, so it's just pushing it forward. It will come, but it takes longer.
Yeah, that's it, because they are interested in the subject, for sure. Nobody is saying don't call me back, but everyone is saying, well, call me back after holidays, because then we know what the future will bring, and then we are focusing on new projects and new investments around this subject. Yeah, that's true.
Another thing, what we have done a survey on supply chain software in the middle of last year. And number one and number two was sales and operations planning and end-to-end supply chain visibility. And the thing is, you have clear software categories called ERP, WMS, TMS, SNOP, visibility is coming up, real-time transport visibility particularly. So, you can buy these kind of software with these names. And until recently, you didn't have a category called supply chain sustainability. And now we are changing that because in our current issue of our magazine, we're coming up with a category with all kind of flavors of software relating to supply chain sustainability. So until now, companies had budget for ERP and they bought ERP or SNOP or WMS or TMS. So I think, creating a category in software called or solutions in supply chain sustainability that will increase the investment and the allocated budgets for that matter.
Yeah, true.
As long as it is integrated with the rest of your software.
Of course.
Maybe Jan can recognize it. From BigMile, you can see it as a separate tool, but I think Jan is also talking with the IT suppliers to make that part of the integral planning.
Yeah.
And then it's also you can optimize your cost, you can optimize your carbon footprint, and you can optimize your driving at time or your service level. So I think within supply chain you want to have these separate scenarios so that each time the supply chain manager can make decisions.
Yeah,
that's it. True, because at this stage it is creating a new market actually, and at this stage it is a lot of reporting and analyzing and giving insights in, let's say, a BI related environment. But at the same time, we are releasing our web services to really integrate in this TMS, ERP, WMS systems to be really part of the operational process, so that every shipment has its CO2 value in the digital dossier, because it can be printed on your invoice, it can be printed on an ECMR. It should be available just like a tariff and the taxes, because that's the future within some years.
I do see that a lot of more innovative software vendors are also either integrating or adding a kind of supply chain sustainability functionality within their tooling. So that's the good news. But we'll see. I hope this kind of survey will be repeated next year. So we'll see how things are changing in the investment in supply chain sustainability.
I expect we do a catch-up of these postponement of investment, and when you look at the current market, that at every market it's quite booming.
Yeah.
So next year these figures really, I think you can mirror them. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. Erwin, getting back to the whole essence of sustainability. So what is, you talked about it earlier, about the motivation for sustainability. So what is the intrinsic motivation for sustainability?
Yeah, I always make the comparison with the product life cycle. And of course you have the early adapters, that the companies, mostly the bigger companies who are adapting this theme. And a few years ago, I would really classify that as a more as a marketing approach. Fortunately, I think now we are in the middle that companies are more aware that you have a more integrated approach. That in working on efficiency, as Jan just stated, is immediately also working on sustainability. So it really goes hand in hand. And so it's not an isolated topic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the phase we're in. And I hope that more and more the saving the planet because of the water that's running over our feet and the fires that Jan was referring to. Yeah, I think that's more the long-term vision, and as I stated in the beginning, I really believe that this new young generation of people, they are the game changers in this level player field.
Yeah,
so they need to shock the old guys and old girls in the network.
Yeah, when you look to the left to the product life cycle, and I know Unilever quite well, and Paul Pommel, the former CEO, started it, and Mark Engel, as Chief Supply Chain Officer, has spoken about it a lot, and maybe it have seen as a marketing approach Unilever becoming more sustainable, but in the end 60% of the products are more or less sustainable or more sustainable than other products, and it has proven that the margins are higher, so it's even more efficient in the end. So Unilever has proven that this road, even to their shareholders, it's the right one, and other CPG major players getting along similarly, but Unilever has claimed it a lot. So maybe it has started as seems like a marketing gimmick, but it's not. It's intrinsic, and in the end, it helps. But now, probably they also have to broaden their scope. And to the right, you said, okay, these are different kind of waves. What does it say, Erwin? This cartoon.
Yeah, this picture was more than 1 year old, I believe. I think it's from April last year. So at that point, we would expect that after COVID, there would be a recession, but I think now it's the other way around. So I'm quite surprised for how quickly this picture has changed, and maybe there's some wave between the recession and climate change.
I think there's no recession. Things are booming, but there are shortages. So the second wave is not recession, but shortages in all kind of things: personnel, material, logistic capacity. So that should be the second wave. But all right, and
if shortages also can help us in improving the climate. Because of your sourcing, where in the past, get all the products from Asia at lowest cost.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's really critical, and maybe it's to improve your continuity of your company. Then it also helps to have a backup in your own region where you source the products.
Yeah.
And Hippie Parade, that's also more sustainable. So that's that has an advantage at both sides.
Yeah. All right. And if you talk about the supply chain context, there are different ways to get supply chain sustainability, and we'll talk about a lot about resilience on one hand and efficiency. Can you explain what are your options in that matter?
Yeah, I think we used the picture of Gardner. And there are several ways, of course, to be more flexible or resilient. But it's not always that easy as it has been projected here.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of companies, they are already working for years and years on efficiency, and how to combine efficiency with all the mindset of the people on efficiency with a more flexible mindset. So really, companies that can do a good combination of those two, I think that those are the winners of the next years.
But if you look at this scheme on the left hand side, creating supply chain resilience, that's needed. But in the end, there's a shortage in chips and ICs, but in other parts and raw materials. But it's quite hard at this moment to get new suppliers for chips or whatever, let alone close by. And I was talking to supply chain director of parts for bicycles, and most of them are coming from the Far East. Sure, they want to have these kind of parts from Europe more close by, not only for sustainability reasons, but also for availability reasons. But it takes 1 or 2 years to build a new factory in Europe.
Yeah, and you have all your contracts with your suppliers, and to change that takes time, of course. So now it's easy to do multi-sourcing, but that really takes some time, and you need some vision to change that, because there's a lead time involved with that.
Yeah, and looking at all these options, most of these options, are no options at all because we are stuck in a situation we're at the moment. And to the right, planting a tree. So what is the meaning of that picture?
I think that picture, when you talk about resilience, is that how can you survive in a desert, that you adapt to circumstances, and that although it's very dry, that you still find a way to grow. For me, that's really resilience, and that's more than flexibility.
Yeah. And sometimes people are relating to resilience on the upstream to your supplier side, but it's also downstream in your commercial way. That you will still have your customers and your orders in that sense. So resilience is all the way through your whole value chain.
Of course, it also has to do with stock allocation. If you have products in one store, but there's demand in another store, how can you bring the products from store A to store B?
Yeah.
Is that a direct flow, or do you need your central warehouse to have that shipped? So that's also in controlling the whole supply chain, and it's not only moving forward, but it's moving like a network.
Yeah. But in the end, if you look at the graph on the left by Gartner, the supply chain resilience, if you look at nearshoring, that's probably more sustainable. But multisourcing don't have to be more sustainable. So these are also the trade-offs you have to make, and the scenarios you have to go through to measure which one are more sustainable and is it viable apart from being in business able to deliver.
Yeah, but I think also multi-sourcing, if you have several suppliers that deliver your products and services, then it can also help you as a company to increase your requirements, that you say, okay, the company with the best sustainable solution can deliver my products.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. But then you have to compare those suppliers. You have to have some measurements and some reporting in that sense. Broaden the scope a bit, talking about sustainability. It's rather broad. You have your 17 UN goals. So what is the essence of supply chain sustainability, Erwin?
Yeah, when we talk about sustainability, then I think there's a lot of fog going around when you talk about sustainability. And with this picture, we would like to address that there are several sides of sustainability. It's not only on your carbon footprint, but it also has a more social component. If you create a good environment for people to work in a safe and nice place, and have a long-term commitment with your people, that's also sustainability.
Mm-hmm. And then you talk about child labor and working conditions at your suppliers, your tier 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down in Bangladesh and Rana Plaza.
The fashion market is quite familiar for this, of course, where you can choose or the coffee market, for instance. And there you can really make a difference in what products you choose.
But in the end, look at Rana Plaza. A lot of these fashion brands didn't know that their fashion was being made in Rana Plaza. So if you take a look at the left hand side on social, we need more visibility to get a better grasp on this social part of sustainability.
Yeah, I agree. And there also you have the more classical approach. If you select a supplier, most of the time it's based on service levels and economic performance, read cost. But how can you also involve other elements? I think a good example is how local governments in the Netherlands work with construction projects. That it's not only the best price, but also the constructor that has the less impact on the environment in the total of movements, people going to this construction project, they are also rewarded for that in the selection.
Mm-hmm.
That you can also do that with your own suppliers in your chain.
But most of the time, when you look at the social part, the OEMs are, asking their suppliers to do audit to their suppliers, but there's a whole bogus market of auditing. You can hire software and you can hire even people when the audits will come. So in the end, that's also a bit foggy market on the audit side, on the left hand side, about social responsibility and labor environments. So that also has to clear up. And in the middle, you get your economic components of sustainability. Can you explain?
Yeah, I think these are the more logistics parts where you can optimize your cost by improving efficiency or have more scale.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is more a classical way of being more sustainable with doing things smarter. I would like to say it.
Yeah. Finally, we get to the right hand side. I get a comment from the audience. I have to read aloud. One thing that prevents wider uptake of genuine sustainability is that some companies don't understand it. Too often, I see companies giving responsibility for it to their communications director, which implied that they will only do greenwashing.
Yeah.
What's your opinion about greenwashing, Erwin?
I think that a good comment. I think that refers to the picture we had. I think 2 slides ago. Is it more marketing, or is it? I always compare it with quality. Yeah? Is quality? Is it the department within your organization, or is the way of working, or is it one of your key themes within the organization? So that if you really have incorporated it in your strategy as a total, then you are touching all these elements as we are showing now in the picture.
Yeah,
and that's not easy.
No, but another thing, the good news is that listed companies, as of later this year, they are forced to do reporting on progress in sustainability. So they have to measure and they have to explain their progress in sustainability, and the firms, the accountancy firms like PwC, EY, KPMG, and Deloitte have to do audits, but there have to be figures around in the company that they can audit. So that's forcing manufacturing companies, wholesale and retail companies to use tools like BigMile to measure their carbon footprint and to explain the progress. So I think in the next month we will see a huge uptake of tooling because of listed companies being forced to do the communication about progress and sustainability, and so to prevent greenwashing and to make sure that things will improve. Do you already have this kind of conversation, Jan, with your customers that the listed companies listed on the stock exchange are forced to do reporting on the sustainability progress?
Yes, definitely. Of course, in this whole broader picture, what we discussed already, of course, marketing is always part of motivators to do something with sustainability. But only claiming we bought 2 electric vehicles, but you still have 800 driving on all diesel. Then you have your marketing and communication moment, but there's no proof that you really improved your footprint.
No.
So it's in this picture also. It's a mindset in how you run a company, and that means your people, your focus, how social is your company organized, and also how transparent are you really in claiming that you are sustainable. And at the end, regulations and law helps with that process and forces companies to do so. Yeah. At the end, the same way they have to pay taxes.
So Jan, I think in Germany that they are, I think, really one step further than in the Netherlands.
Yeah, and what I know, because we talk a lot with let's say the ministry in the Netherlands for infrastructure and transport. We always try to get the latest news about regulations and coming up laws. And what we see indeed is that the Dutch government most of the time is following the trends in Germany.
Yeah.
And in Germany they have already added some extra cost to a liter of diesel at the tank station. But that's not the solution, because that's something on an upgrade on a price, and then it's not really divided in what's really the sustainable part of your cost of diesel in your truck. So the next step will really be this reporting obligation, and after that we are sure that I think in 2023, something like that, the first taxes will be implemented to really charge CO2, and then in your whole supply chain, this will be charged to each other on the invoices. Yeah.
Carbon taxation, yes. Erwin, when I look at the right-hand side, you see reduce waste and avoid depletion of resources. Then we get in the area of the circular supply chains. Make sure that it will be used longer, longer lifetime of products, reusability, refurbishing,
materials, getting the air out of packaging, so that the whole kind of elements that you can work on. Product design.
Yeah, and also cradle to cradle reusability of products. That's the way forward. To make it more practical, so where can companies start? Erwin.
I think on this moment the most popular topics, of course, are transport. They're not only with the type of truck you have with electric trucks, but also in reducing your transport time, your kilometers, your driving time. Mm-hmm. I think that's the most easiest, because these trucks also go into the cities, so they have the most impact on the environmental aspects for people living in the city. So I really see that as the number one topic, and that's also where Jan with BigMile is coming up. Mm-hmm. But also, within your facility there are a lot of possibilities with Briem as I think a very popular standard of designing and building your facility.
I have a comment about that. I had a conversation with the director of supply chain director of a huge automotive parts wholesaler, and they had built just a new warehouse, and it was Briem certified, but they had plans to put on solar panels on the roof. But if they would do that, they would lose their Briem certification, because the roofs becoming too heavy, and it was disproportionate, whatever. So basically, they said, the owner of the building said, no, we don't want this solar panel, because we will lose our Briem certification of this building, rented out to this wholesaler. And basically, they didn't. So this supply chain director said, Briem is nice, but it's also a bit of a scam, because why can't we have the solar panels on our roof, not losing the Briem certification for the owner of the warehouse? So that's.
I don't know all the rules exactly for the Briem, but this sounds a little bit strange.
But I trust this guy, because they are on top of it. Because it's a conflict. The owner of the building wants this Briem certification, because this makes it easier to sell this building on the one hand, but the user of this building wants panels on his roof. So okay. What about interlogistics? What can you tell about that area?
Yeah, there of course you see that all the people, all the equipment that you have installed within your operation, the more lean and mean you set it up, that also helps in making things more sustainable, of course.
Yeah. And products, and we have a comment about that, but do explain where to start on products and services, and then I have a question from the audience.
Yeah, products, for instance, is the type of packaging material that you use, or the volume of the product itself. How can you optimize that? I think a good example is Apple with the iPhones that try to make the package as small as possible, and don't deliver the earplugs because everybody already has earplugs.
Mm-hmm.
That's working on your product, of course.
I get a question for the audience relating to this. How would you take the whole life cycle into account when measuring sustainability, since it may be more sustainable to keep current assets in use rather than buy new ones, for example, trucks, and it also relate to products. And maybe also to Apple, why you come up with a new iPhone every year. Erwin,
I don't have the question. Could you repeat it?
How would you take the whole life cycle into account when measuring sustainability, since it may be more sustainable to keep current assets in use rather than buy new ones, for example, trucks? So you have older trucks, very efficient diesel trucks.
Yeah.
And how do you relate to the sustainability part in that sense?
Yeah, you have to make the integral decision, of course. If you have some system running, if you say, "I just throw it away," then you have a big waste. So there's always a more integral trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
With having this current system running for 3 more years, and when is the good time to change that? I agree that you cannot put all your trucks aside and get all the new electrical trucks on board, beside of all other issues you have on that moment.
Yeah, and if you want to supply your stores in the inner city, if you would take out the current diesel trucks, the big ones, to electric vans, you need 5, 6, 7 of these electric vans to get the same kind of supply deliveries to this store. So that's not viable at the moment.
Yeah, I think especially for the mid-sized and more smaller transport companies, that would be a killer for them if they would have to change that, because they don't have that investment money on the bank. So
no. So the main supply chains are still using huge trucks with pallets, and since we don't have electric trucks or hydrogen trucks, it's not viable at the moment to change that. And the last part, planning and control. What is it there to start concerning sustainability?
Yeah, planning and control, or setting up your supply chain is, of course, that you try to have the right product on the right place, and with a single touch, of course. That's the most ideal situation, is that you have a lean and mean supply chain and a good planning control system on it, because that helps you in preventing all returns and those kinds of unnecessary moves. I think that's the goal of planning and control.
Yeah. All right. And you mentioned Connect. Can you explain what is your connection to Connect and what is it?
Yeah, I think because a lot of companies have where to start. For a lot of companies, that this is a really new subject. Where do you find knowledge about the pricing of electrical trucks, or what is the trade-off in this area? And Connect has set up quite some funding that companies can go to Connect, and they will help you in setting these first few steps on becoming more sustainable, and what to do, how to measure your carbon footprint, where to start.
Yeah.
So there, companies are helped to get the knowledge on the market. And within the Netherlands, this is being set up by the government, really to also to improve and to have to fuel in this case this innovation of the market.
Yeah. Right, we get that because Connect is also related to BigMile. I get a remark from the audience from Sean Cooley, author of a great book, Transition Point. He's stating, without understanding of the end-to-end supply chain and its strategic requirements, decisions can be made based on sustainability of a node, activity, product, when a less sustainable option may have a better overall impact, might be being more local. So what he is stating, what I think, is that, take a holistic view of your end-to-end supply chain from raw material until the end users of the product is the way to start. But I don't know, it is quite complex to map it out. But maybe you don't need one facility anyway, being more local. So, and that's getting back to you, Erwin, and your services like supply chain mapping and network design.
Yeah.
Is it also a case that companies are looking more to an end-to-end supply chain mapping from sourcing all the way from raw material to the end users, rather than just the current factories and warehouse they are at, and look at it in a sustainability way?
I think you have all different types of companies that are more classical, organized, and have a more inside view of their supply chain. And you have the more I was referring before, the early adapters. They're really changing the setup of the supply chain and being more integrated. But we really need those kind of companies to change the scene, of course, and that also the successors of the early adapters follow in that stream. Yeah, you need game changers to be the first.
Yeah. Jan, BigMile. What do you need to start with BigMile?
Yeah, actually, you can start with, let's say, we call it a low-level data set. And we state if you can send an invoice, then it's also possible to start your calculations and reporting with BigMile. If you have all the addresses of your origin and destination locations, the volume of what has been transported. That can be the tows, the containers, that can be cubics, that can be weight, whatever. Then we can already start using industry key figures to make your first report. So it's really a low-level step in to start. And what you will see is that you say, hey, but we are performing better than what we see here. And then we say, okay, that's good, but then we need more data. And then the fuel consumption pops up because at the end, the fuel, what has been consumed on a daily trip is your carbon footprint at the end. But of course, it is still a challenge in terms of data to have this data available, especially when you are the brand in the supply chain and not the logistic service provider. And even if you are the service provider, then it's not being said that you have your own vehicles and that you have insights in the fuel consumption. So that makes the data stream very important. And that's where we are focusing on with our platform to make that easy, to connect all the parties in this chain, to share this data, of course, only to be shared to the right stakeholders and customer and supplier related. But that's where we are focusing on.
Okay.
So you can start quite easily.
Yeah, all right. And I do know several companies using BigMile, but they didn't know from each other. So it pointed out that they should compare notes on that matter. We're getting to the end of the webinar. We have also created a mind map about sustainable supply chains, and we did that with Circular IQ. That's a Dutch startup, delivering a product passport, and that's a requirement for office furniture in the Netherlands. So your bill of material is also explained in the passport in all parts. You know where it's coming from which suppliers. So there's no obscurity what your suppliers or sub-suppliers are. in this passport. You can download this mind map online. I answered already quite some questions during the webinar. There are still some questions open. I would suggest that we would, answer these questions in our next 30 minutes after talk in AirMeet. So if you want to join us, Erwin, Jan, and myself will be available in AirMeet. Go to the lounge, go to table 1, and then you will meet us, and you can ask us questions, and we're happy to answer them in this lounge. There's some further reading. You will see it. There's the maturity matrix. There's a mind map and some links to Districon and BigMile. You will get it when you download the PDF with the links. And with that, I would like to thank you, Erwin, Jan, to join me in this webinar. So thank you both.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, thanks a lot. The audience, great to have his questions, and it's a very important topic, and I hope you liked it. And this recording will be made available within 48 hours. And I hope to see you right after this in the lounge. If not, I hope to see you in our next webinar coming Wednesday. Thanks a lot, and see you in the lounge or next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.